Hello, it's Andy from PCR Global with another one of our brief walk and talk videos for those new to risk management. This week I'm going to briefly talk about the high level structure again. Last week we looked at context, this week we looked at leadership. When we think of the high level structure, it's good for us to know all the clauses quite intimately: context, leadership, planning, support, operation, performance, evaluation and improvement. As I say, this week we're going to have a walk and we're going to talk about leadership, which is clause 5, and we'll look at it sort of through the lens of safety, 45,001, security, 18,788, quality, 9,001 where we can, and also 14,001 environmental management systems. So without further ado, have a quick look around and then off we go. So clause 5, leadership. With 45,001, it's actually leadership and worker involvement. That's the first area whereby 45 stands out and has that focus on worker involvement. So within the clause, there are 3 sub-clauses, with 45,001 having 4 sub-clauses. They've got an additional clause. So clause 5.1 is leadership and commitment. 5.2 is policy. So that could be leadership involving the environmental policy, the security policy, the health and safety or the quality policy. 5.3 is organisational roles and responsibilities, a very important clause. And then clause 5.4, which is the only one, the additional for 45,001, is consultation and participation of workers. So what do we need when we say clause, we've got 5.1 leadership and commitment. As an ISO auditor, when I go in, it's quite easily for me to cross-reference leadership and commitment against what you've actually done. It's quite a big clause, especially for 45,001. When I consult with organisations, it's a clause whereby they just think, well, leadership, we're doing that anyway. But we're not looking for what type of leader you are. We're not really bothered if it's you've got laissez-faire leadership, transactional, transformational, autocratic, democratic. We're not looking for the type of leader you are. We're looking specifically that you've managed to nail down the requirements within that clause. So leadership and commitment. Interestingly, 9,001, quality, and 18,788 have they have an additional clause each in there, an additional sub-clause, I should say. For quality is customer focus, and for 18,788, it is the requirement for the statement of conformance. So sticking with quality, the leadership has to demonstrate customer focus, that you are looking at the regulatory requirements for your stakeholders as well. And when we look across to 18,788, the statement of conformance, you are actually documenting a statement that you will conform to many of the human rights requirements. So it could be the International Code of Conduct for private security service providers, or it could be the Montreux document or the UN guiding principles. But they are the additional requirement within that clause. So if it's 18,788, we're going to want to see that documented. Leadership and commitment, where else? So policy. If you don't have a policy, then obviously there's a failure in leadership and commitment. If you haven't set your objectives, there's a failure in leadership. And the important one that I focus on is resources. So resources, if I'm looking at you from a security standpoint and you don't have the right equipment, if I'm looking at you from a health and safety standpoint, you don't have the right management in place, you don't have the right tools in place, you haven't provided the right training, then that is a failure in leadership. So if you fail in many other clauses that we will look at in the next few weeks, then I can reach back into this one clause and this under leadership and commitment. So 5.1 is an important clause. 5.2 is policy. This is policy across the board for each of the disciplines. And what we're looking at there, have you set a policy? Is the policy applicable? Is it relatable to your organisation? Often I see policies, whether they're health and safety policy or security policy, that are copied from other locations, and they're not actually representative of the current operation that you've got. And then it's going to lead to a non-conformity. But obviously, if it's not representative of your organisation, then how can you put that policy out, to your clients, to your stakeholders, to your staff. It's incorrect. So what is that saying about your leadership? Enough said, I think. So resources is a big one there. Policy, has it been communicated? 1878 is quite specific in that it needs to be visibly endorsed by senior management. If we're talking about the health and safety policy, then we're used to not looking at the ISO standards, but we're used to, we've gone on an EBOS, we've gone on an NCRQ, and we generally know what the requirements are of a policy. It's written in the health and safety at work on the website, basically saying you've got the statement, the policy statement, then you've got the organisation, which is realistically the roles and responsibilities, and then we've got the arrangements. So there's 3 sections generally in the policy area. Arrangements for fire, arrangements for first aid, arrangement for monitoring and review. So that's what the policy. So 5.3, organisational, so roles and responsibilities. So we are here, we're looking at who are designated, who's been designated to do the certain roles required within the organisation. I know with 45,000, it basically says that top management still holds the authority. Well, of course, you can delegate sort of responsibilities, but you can't delegate accountability. That is important, especially important if you have many business units split up over many areas. But top management is still accountable. 45,001 also references that somebody should be identified who reports back to senior management on health and safety performance. So again, if this is missing, if those people haven't been identified, I know a few companies that we have gone in to do gap analysis, and they haven't identified who the health and safety coordinator is, who the first aiders are. So straight away, you're going to fail for 45,000, but you're also going to fail under general health and safety law. So the last one, which is clause 5.4, only applicable to 45,001, is consultation and participation of workers. And this is where it requires you that the involvement in developing, in the planning, in the reviewing, and in the performance evaluation as well. So you've got to involve your workers. It's quite often we will see documentation sets put in by consultants, and actually nobody within the organisation was ever involved in their development. So straight away, they're not going to be specific. And the most important thing is the guys and girls on the ground don't have an actual understanding of them. It's not representative of the organisation. So that was it. Leadership, a very important clause. Remember, we're not looking for the type of leader people are. However, if a lot of these things are missing, then it does give a good indication of the type of leadership that we're looking at, and which is going to result in majors or minors. Worse than that, it could result in obviously incidents and accidents. So I hope you found that useful. It is a really important clause, not always easy to decipher when you look at it first off, but ISO auditors, they can, if they find something wrong elsewhere in the system, they can easily lead it back to this clause as well. So remember, we're not looking for the type, but we're looking to ensure you've documented where you need to document, you've monitored where you need to monitor, and you've involved where you need to involve. So thank you very much for watching. Remember, stay safe, stay healthy, stay productive. Don't trust it, test it. Thanks for watching.